Hi, everyone. Welcome back to She Barks Podcast. I am your host, Brittany Show, and today's guest is Jackie Roby. Hi, Jackie.
Brooke, hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being a guest. So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your history, about child abuse and the abuse you went through as a child. Can you share with my listeners a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I
It's okay. It's okay. I've had people. I've had people cry on here. It's hard to tell their story. It's really hard. It really
thank,
is hard.
thank you for allowing me a moment of pause and breath.
Yeah, it's okay.
My
So,
first abuser came into my life when I was 3 years old, and that was my paternal grandfather. So he had sexually abused me for 4 years, from 3 to 7. There were years during that time where we lived in the same home. I'm a Latina. I grew up in New York. We all lived in one big house. There was 10 of us in multiple generations. And I learned really early on to stay quiet, and that using my voice meant it made other people uncomfortable. And so that kept me buried for a really long time.
someone you trusted too. You're supposed to be like a father figure when your father is not there. It's tough. It's tough. It is.
And this was my father's father and someone that he was really close with. And so that made it even more confusing, this messaging that this person's wonderful and loves you. And then at the same time, family business stays in the family. And watching that age old story of things being just pushed under the rug and never looked at.
Even by your mom, like your mom. Oh,
I had tried to speak up when I was 3, and it did not go well. I was reprimanded for adding stress. And so then I stopped trying.
and then finally stopped when you were 4.
No, 4 years later when I was 7.
Oh wow! It finally stopped when you were 7.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's the kind of thing that was buried, not just in the family, but in my mind and my subconscious. We create this padding to protect us. And it had to be done. Otherwise, how do you survive? How do you show up with a smile on your face and love in your heart? But it also reinforced this message that it must be my fault. Something's wrong with me. I'm seeing it wrong. I've got to have this wrong. And it was when I was 21 that things came back around. I just graduated from college. We had a family just gathering. Everyone went their separate ways, but I stayed with my grandfather at his house. And I remember he said, "Oh, I want to show you something." And he opened his wallet and he had this picture of me, this school picture from sixth grade. And it seemed really strange. And, you know, I was 21. And my first thought, other than this is strange, is, oh, I hate that picture. And he made this lunch, and then we sat on the couch to watch a show. And, I come from an affectionate Latin family. And so we were sitting right next to each other, and it felt really uncomfortable to me. But I'm supposed to trust my family. And I remember that he was rubbing my ear like this, and it felt awkward and uncomfortable. And then he took my hand and he was rubbing my hand, and I felt tense and I couldn't really breathe. And then he put my finger in his mouth and I froze. And, Brooke, I can tell you that I do not remember how I got out, what happened next, what excuse I made. I know I went to go see my parents. Like maybe they were waiting for me for something. I don't know. And I went to see them and I told them what happened. And the first response was, well, had he been drinking? And no, and it doesn't matter.
All right.
And I remember stories of how he made my mom feel uncomfortable in certain ways. And then that was it. And then we went and had dinner with him that night, and nothing was done and nothing was said. And years later, my parents claimed that they don't remember me ever saying anything.
What? So they disregarded what you said when you was a kid. Oh my.
And even as a young adult, being able to bring that to life and then say, we don't recall that one at all. So fast forward 5 years, I have moved across the country to a city where I don't know anybody. There's no family. And I go back to visit for the holidays. And he says, I have something to show you. Come with me. Takes me into his office. And there is this picture of me that my aunt had taken when I had visited her in New York, set as his desktop background.
What?
Strange. And, so many things are running through my head at that point. How did he get this? Why is it there? This doesn't make any sense. Feeling violated, feeling frozen again. And he said, I miss you so much. Ever polite, right? I miss you too, Grandpa. I think about you all the time. Oh, I think about you too. I think about when you were 3 years old and you fell asleep on the floor waiting for me to come home from work. And you were wearing these gray cotton panties. And it took everything in me not to take them off of you. And I was frozen. And I'll never forget one of my cousins came in and said that my sister was looking for me. And I went out, and my sister said, I just had a feeling. I don't know. I wanted you to come out of that room. And we went for a drive. I said, I need to get out of here. And I told her, and I asked her to keep a secret from me because I felt shame. And my family had so many rifts in it that in my head, I would be the one responsible for breaking it forever.
It's tough. It really is tough. Oh, God. You don't. And please tell me you don't have any contact with him anymore.
No, he died in August 2020. And even before that, it was really minimal. We set it up so that I would never be alone with him in a room if I was visiting. And every time, even if it was just for a minute, I would have so much fear. And at this point, he could barely walk. He was in a wheelchair, but it didn't matter. There was still this terror every time I heard his name.
So sorry. Yes. This was a young grandfather. I don't know what to say. Like, it's hard. And he never did that to any of your sister or anybody else, just you?
Not that I know of. There have been instances, none of them are my story to tell, but the overall response that I would hear was, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's doing stuff
Yeah.
around. And it really is hard to cut off someone that's supposed to be family. It's hard. I'm glad you're safe now. It's tough. My grandfather, I'm still taken back by it. Shocked. Oh my God. So how are you healing from that? Like, are you still healing from it, like a slow process, or you can tell it's still a struggle?
I believe healing's a journey. So I can't say that I'm fully healed from anything. But the fact that I can actually tell the story is part of my growth of healing. I will tell you that when I left after that moment that he said that memory, I it started my spiral into depression. And what I now understand was not just depression, but PTSD and CPTSD, a term that I've recently become more intimately familiar with. So, complex PTSD, because the length of time and the multiple abuses, multiple instances. And that was really painful. And I realized that I had spent so much time running from my feelings. I was living at the time in Colorado. We moved from New York when I was 13 to Colorado, and then I moved to Boston on my own at 25. And I didn't know it then, but I needed to be away in order to heal. I wouldn't have been able to do it in that space. And thank goodness for that. One of the hardest things, I think, at this point in my healing journey is probably the aspect with my parents. Because I spent a really long time protecting them in this, and I had to, right? Where else was I going to be safe? Who else was looking out for me? And I realize that now. But I think one of the beautiful things that happens as you heal, it's beautiful and it can be maddening, is it's like your subconscious is like, cool, you got this. Here's something else. Now you're ready for the next level.
You're right.
So, that's still definitely a process further than I've been, because otherwise that would have been a boundary that I didn't speak about at all.
Man, it is tough telling your story. It's so tough. Like the few people that I've interviewed about their sexual abuse, it's tough. It's tough. It is. And sometimes I want to cry too. I mean, it's tough. That's all I'm gonna say. It's tough. But
It is.
I am happy that you're sharing your story because it can help other people, especially people that are going through it right now. That's why I wanted people to share their stories because there are people going through that right now as we're speaking.
And thank you for doing that, because honestly, you feel so alone. And I remember feeling dirty, like I was tainted somehow, and like you could see it on me. And who's going to love me knowing that? And that's a lie. And that's a lie that your abuser puts on you. And the shame comes from them and from gaslighting and from people that are supposed to protect you not doing that, not believing you, pretending it didn't happen, or hearing it, but then still celebrating Father's Day with him.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is something we've heard before.
Yeah.
Just throw it off. All
Right. This doesn't make us comfortable. This doesn't make our lives easy. Right. So all of a sudden, even though you did nothing wrong, and it wasn't your fault. And I want to stress that for anyone going through it or healing, that it wasn't your fault. I understand that you've been made to feel like it is. Even if people supporting you are not saying that, it can come across. There were some people who in my family who handled it perfectly. If there is a perfect way to handle something
Yeah.
like that. But it's painful, and you take on this responsibility that isn't yours. It's so unfair. It's so unfair.
Oh, so how are you feeling now? Like you've already told me a little bit, but what are you doing to help other people? I know you have your mindful healing coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a mindset coach, and I work with people like myself who have experienced abuse, and I help them to shift from self-doubt to self-empowerment. Because I know that even with all the healing work you do, it creeps in. I've spent 15 consecutive years in therapy, and I'm so grateful for that. I've learned so much. I've grown so much. I've healed so much. I laugh a little bit about it because I graduated this past year. Really, my therapist was like, I feel like you're kind of at a point where, we're good. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. Which I'm really grateful for. But I know in myself that these things still happen. And with all the things that I do to take care of myself, and let me tell you, first of all, I study transcendental meditation. So that's a form of meditation that I use. I have guided meditations. I've worked with coaches. I've worked with healers. Somatic breath work is amazing. I'd highly recommend that. I am a positive intelligence trained coach. So that works on retraining your brain. I'm a human design specialist. So I can see really the depth of who you are, who you're designed to be. And I implement these practices in my everyday life.
It's amazing.
I know that the majority of people don't do that. So imagine the pain that's happening, the self-doubt that's happening without us even realizing it. That's why I want to help.
That's amazing. I love it. I love what you're doing. So can you walk us a little bit through your website so my listeners get a little oh, accidentally highlighted. Okay. I'm just gonna accept it all.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to get that off. Okay. Okay.
Right.
So a little bit through your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome to my homepage. This tells a little bit about me, what I do, and how I do it. I have a 5-minute mental wellness guide that people can receive, and that's where it says free guidance.
Okay.
I do a lot of speaking, so I am an international speaker. I've been flown to Ibiza, to Riviera Maya, to Dubai, to speak, and as well as in the US. So that's something that I love to do. And I love to teach workshops in this space as well to really help understand your value, your love for yourself, Because once you've got that there, then you can move on and really be empowered.
Yes.
So this coaching speaks specifically to those who have been abused. And as you go through, I offer free breakthrough sessions, and I rely heavily on having values and standing firm in them. I am not the business owner that, you know, stays on a safe line. I believe in living my truth. So one of the things that was really interesting for me when I started my business was seeing, number one, that there wasn't a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion, or justice, and then also that there was a lot of emphasis on weight loss. And for me, that's very triggering. So I value body acceptance, and that's something that I try to put forward all the time, because I will be speaking about loving you for you today. If you scroll down, there's a video that shows an introduction to me and a little bit about whether or not this is the right fit. Over on the offers page, if you go back up to that menu, okay, so go to the offers, just the overall page actually. And this is a great kind of one pager for ways to be engaged. So there's the free insight with the 5-minute mental wellness guide. I have self-guided courses that are available. So around self-love, boundary setting, and reducing stress. And then
Really
2 different
nice.
group coaching programs.
This is really nice. This is something I needed in my life right about now. Like,
I love it. And yes, and of course, human design readings. And then my podcast is also available. My podcast is called Through Inspired Eyes, You're Worthy of More.
oh, I'm gonna check that out.
Please do.
Okay, I definitely am. I'm gonna add it to my website.
Yay.
This is nice, and I can listen to it at work too.
That's right. I
So
love
do you
that.
have, so on your podcast, do you have like some of his guided medication? I mean, not medication, meditation.
You know what? I don't have guided meditation, so I wouldn't say that I'm a meditation instructor by any chance. During my coaching sessions, we do mindfulness practices so that we're bringing people into the space. And part of the positive intelligence practice has to do with mindfulness. And we do that in a way to help you retrain your brain, because the part of our brain where the survival is, the fight, flight, freeze, it is right next to the default mode network. And the default mode network is where the majority of our inner dialogue sits. And so it's like your inner moderator hanging out next to the panic button all day.
Yep.
So we've been trained just through the years, and the way our bodies and our brains work, to constantly have these deep neural pathways bringing us towards negativity. But through the practice that I take my clients through, we use positive intelligence and mindfulness to build new neural pathways to a calmer, more positive space where you can get that true wisdom and lean into your strengths instead of letting your strengths take over and become saboteurs.
I really do. Oh, man. I needed this in my life right about now. I really did. I really did. Really did. And
I
knew
love
it.
Well, universe brought us together. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of a feeling because, yeah, definitely needed this in my life. I'm glad I came across you. I'm like, yeah, definitely have to have her on my podcast.
That's a gift. I appreciate that.
So, is there any last words you want to share with my listeners before I let you go?
I want you to know that it takes a tremendous amount of strength to ask for help.
Oh, oh,
And oftentimes we are being given messages that doing that makes us weak, but it doesn't. It actually makes us strong. And when we do the inner work, that's what makes us incredibly brave and resilient. And we can exceed leaps and bounds beyond others who are ignoring all of their pain.
1,000% right. 1,000% right. And there are people out there that will help you out of that situation from being abused. There are a lot of people, just a whole lot of people, especially kids. Like, I really, really, really encourage them to speak up. I really do.
Absolutely. There is a nonprofit that I learned about within the past year called Stop the Silence.
Mhm.
And they are specifically helping with kids who are being sexually abused.
Oh, wow. I'm going to look that up and add that to my website as well.
Yeah.
I did not even know they had that.
I didn't either. And you can imagine I stopped breathing in a good way.
Man, yes. Finally, we'll have something to stop this from happening to future children in the future. This has
Exactly.
to stop. It has to stop. It really
Exactly.
does. I want to thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on here and sharing your story. I know it was tough. I really do. I know it was tough.
Thank you. I appreciate you holding space and so lovingly and with just true care.
You take care now. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, She Birth Podcast. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button. And I do want you all to encourage children to speak out against abuse, especially if they are being sexually abused. In any kind of abuse situation, encourage children to speak out. I want to thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you all have a great day and see you next time for the next interview. Bye.